I've hit my breaking point. I don't know how to make sense of this mess anymore. A little background. I'm 43, my wife is 40, and we've been married for 16 years. We have 2 kids. Our daughter is 14, and our son is 9. Early in our marriage, we faced plenty of struggles, but we managed to push through and come out stronger. We were young and, honestly, pretty immature, but we truly loved each other and believed we could overcome anything together. Now, I'm starting to wonder if that was just my naive optimism. For the past 3 years, my wife has worked as a manager at a major advertising firm, while I've been working as an engineer for the last 7. Financially, we were doing well. Our combined income gave us a comfortable life, and we always prioritized our family. We made sure our kids knew we were there for them and did everything we could to give them a happy childhood. No matter how packed our schedules were, we always carved out time for the kids. I genuinely believe I've been a good husband and father. I wasn't perfect, and I made my fair share of mistakes in my marriage, but I always tried my best, which is why I was completely crushed when I found out my wife had been cheating on me. And not just recently, this had been going on for a while. Here's how it all unraveled. My wife started acting distant. To be fair, the past 2 years had already been rough. Nothing I did seemed to make her happy. She constantly compared me to her boss, something that in hindsight makes a lot more sense now. She would say things like, "He just understands me in a way you don't," or "He treats his wife like a queen, takes her out on dates, and makes her feel special, unlike you." And then there was the immaturity accusation. She kept telling me I needed to grow up. When I asked her what I could do to improve things between us, she would just roll her eyes and say, "You shouldn't have to ask. You should just know." I was desperate to fix whatever was wrong. I bought books, did research, anything that might help me figure out how to be a better husband. But every effort I made was met with either a lukewarm thanks or a dismissive sigh. My wife had never been like this before, and I started wondering if I was just incapable of making her happy. How do I fix this? That thought haunted me. Turns out, I wasn't the only one trying to fix things. We were close with her boss and his wife. They had kids around the same age as ours, so we often hung out together. Family barbecues, park outings, weekend trips to play areas. They had been over to our house many times, and we had been to theirs. So, naturally, I trusted him. In fact, I even opened up to him about the struggles in my marriage. He always gave solid advice, and I thought he was a stand-up guy. Meanwhile, I was emotionally drained, trying to meet my wife's never-ending expectations while our relationship was slowly crumbling. And the worst part? Up until then, I thought our marriage was solid. One night, she was lying in bed next to me, texting someone and giggling. I glanced over out of curiosity, but the second she noticed, she yanked her phone away. She turned to me, angry. "What are you doing?" I shrugged. I just wanted to see what was so funny. She shot back, "It's none of your business," then got up and locked herself in the bathroom. That moment sent a cold wave through me. I think deep down I knew something was very, very wrong, but I didn't have proof. The next day, I made the mistake of confronting her. She exploded, denied everything. I had no way of checking her phone, but I needed answers. When I asked to see it, she refused. Later that night, after hours of tension, she finally handed it over. But by then, most of her messages had been wiped. I could tell. Some conversations were chopped up, and others didn't make sense. I gave the phone back and didn't mention it again for a month, but I couldn't let it go. Eventually, I reached out to a friend who helped me recover deleted messages. That's when I discovered she had a second phone, a phone she barely ever used. Once I retrieved some of her messages, I had undeniable proof. She was having an affair, and, as you probably figured out by now, it was with her boss. I knew that if I confronted her immediately, she'd twist things around and find a way to talk herself out of it. So I waited. I was shattered. The only thing I could think about was how this would affect our kids. It wrecked me so badly that I broke down in front of my friend. But even then, I wasn't ready to walk away. 3 days later, I went out and bought a book called How to Help Your Spouse Heal from an Affair. Yeah, if you're shaking your head right now, I get it. I dove into that book, clinging to the hope that if I handed it to my wife, she'd read it, snap out of this, and stop the madness. I wanted to fight for my marriage. I was determined to get my wife back and rebuild what we had. I planned to sit down with her on Saturday and finally lay everything out, but she told me she had urgent work to take care of and wouldn't be home. That didn't sit right with me. So, Naturally, I called her office to check. No one picked up. I tried again. Same result. Then I looked it up online. The office was closed. I dialed her number next, but she didn't answer. She finally came home at 2 a.m. on Sunday. No explanaciones, no apologies. She just walked straight into the shower, then climbed into bed like nothing happened. I asked why she was so late. She barely looked at me and brushed it off. I told you not to wait up. That was it. No attempt to explain, no concern for how I felt. I never ended up giving her the book I had bought. At that point, I realized something painful. She saw how much I was suffering, and she didn't care. My pain meant nothing to her. That's when I reached out to her boss's wife. I needed support. I was losing my mind, and I didn't regret confiding in her for a second. When she found out the truth, she was just as blindsided as I was. She wanted to confront her husband right away, but I warned her. If she went at him without proof, he'd just lie and get better at covering his tracks. Just like my wife had, we decided to work together. I met her at her house, laid out the little evidence I had, and we started putting the puzzle together. She needed more proof, so we made a plan. I would keep an eye on my wife, and she would do the same with her husband. It didn't take long for her to find solid proof. Her husband was arrogant. He didn't even bother deleting incriminating messages. Finally, all the cryptic texts I had found earlier made sense. We pieced it together and discovered their affair had been going on for 2 years. 2 years. She was furious. So was I. And the worst part? They had slept together everywhere. In my house, in hers, in high-end hotels during business trips. Reading the messages made me sick. We found pictures too, but we decided to skip those. No point in traumatizing ourselves more than we already were. We wanted revenge, but we agreed on one thing. We weren't going to sink to their level. No cheating. No games. If they wanted to be together, they could have each other. We both started preparing divorce papers in secret. Neither of our spouses had a clue. We kept playing our roles like nothing had changed, waiting for the right moment to strike. And then we got what we needed. Thanks to our careful tracking, we found out exactly where they were planning their next romantic getaway. They had booked a hotel for the weekend, far from home. Perfect. On the big day, I personally went to that hotel with a court officer. I waited calmly in the lobby while the officer called my wife down from her room. When she walked out, still wrapped in a hotel robe, she froze. Her face went pale the second she saw me. She stammered, "What are you doing here?" The officer verified her identity and a few personal details. She, still confused, answered yes. And just like that, she was served. Watching the panic spread across her face gave me a sense of cold satisfaction. But I didn't want to drag it out. I had done what I came to do, so I turned to leave. She grabbed my arm, refusing to let me go. "Wait, what's going on? What is this?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "You cheated. I'm leaving. It's that simple." She lost it. She started yelling, pulling at my arm like that would somehow undo everything. The officer had to step in and tell her to back off. That's when the tears came. "I can explain. You're misunderstanding everything. This is your fault too." I was already furious. If I stayed, I would have said something I regretted. So I walked away. Later, I found out she told everything to her boss. He panicked. He rushed home, probably thinking he could smooth things over. But he was already too late. His wife was waiting for him, with divorce papers in hand. We didn't give them a chance to weasel their way out. We caught them just like they had caught us, completely off guard. Now my divorce is almost finalized. Hers might take longer. And the most pathetic part? Neither of them wants the divorce. They're suddenly full of excuses. It wasn't serious, just physical. We never planned to leave our families. People survive worse affairs and stay together. We just made a mistake, but we can fix it. I looked my wife in the eye and asked, "Where did you think this was going?" She hesitated, then muttered, "I don't know. I wasn't thinking. It wasn't really me. I don't know who I was back then." I told her she was an idiot. Some people say I'm cruel for refusing to give her another chance. My kids know what's happening, at least as much as they need to know, and while they support me, they wish we could somehow stay together. The problem is my resolve is starting to slip. We still live under the same roof. She's going to therapy. She's reading the book I bought. And I hate to admit it, but it's getting harder to stay firm in my decision. She keeps saying she regrets everything and is willing to do whatever it takes to fix things. My only response? You're just sorry you got caught. She's called me bitter, resentful, someone who refuses to let go of the past. Later, she apologized for saying that. But let's be real, I know she still believes it. The fact that I'm still in contact with her boss's wife drives her insane. She's convinced I'm going to get back at her by having an affair, or that the boss's wife is the reason I refuse to give our marriage another shot. She's begged me to cut ties with her, just like she cut off her boss. I told her she was out of her mind. We haven't done anything wrong, and frankly, I don't give a damn what she thinks right now. She lost the right to have an opinion on who I talk to. I have no respect left for her, but she still won't give up. She keeps trying to have long, deep conversations about her affair, why it happened, what she was feeling, what she's learned. I see it for what it is, an attempt to justify her actions. I don't engage. Now she wants us to go to therapy together. Yeah? No. I've heard enough stories about therapy sessions where the victim gets blamed, manipulated into sharing responsibility for their partner's cheating. Not happening. She wants us to read books on infidelity together. For what? We're getting divorced. There's no point. And here's the kicker. She wants intimacy. I shut that down immediately. Told her I wouldn't be manipulated like that. She insists it's not manipulation, just her way of showing how much she loves me. I laughed. Oh, now you love me? People around me say I'm being too harsh. Even my own mother tells me I should reconsider, that everyone makes mistakes, and my wife has finally realized, through her mistakes, how much she truly loves me. I tell them the same thing every time. I refuse to be anyone's backup plan. And yet, I can't shake this nagging feeling. I feel bad for the way I treat her sometimes. I still love her, but I also hate her. Am I being too cruel? She's trying so hard, and I just don't care. Should I reconsider the divorce? Everyone says I'm rushing into it, that I'll regret it. I don't know what's real anymore. So let me clarify a few things. Right now, my wife and I are on somewhat neutral ground, but that doesn't mean we're reconciling. No, the divorce is still happening. She's still begging for another chance, doing everything she can to prove herself. But I can't give her that chance. Her affair lasted too damn long. 2 years. That's not a lapse in judgment. That's a lifestyle. If it had been a one-night mistake, maybe I could have worked through it. But 2 years? That's a drawn-out, deliberate betrayal. A slap in the face over and over again. I agreed to go to a few therapy sessions with her. Not because I'm secretly hoping to fix things, just because I wanted to see for myself whether she was actually changing. The first session was surprisingly productive. It helped me understand that she is in fact remorseful. She hasn't handled the aftermath perfectly, but she is trying. The second session? A complete disaster. She got pissed about my continued contact with the boss's wife, convinced that I was going to cheat out of revenge. That was probably the angriest moment in this whole mess. We fought about it later, and she demanded I cut ties with her. That was never going to happen. The issue was eventually settled when I promised there would be no revenge cheating. Not that I owed her any reassurances. But until the divorce is finalized, she's still my wife, and I want to at least finish this with some dignity. I keep going to therapy with her, not because I secretly want to fix things, but because I want to see her progress with my own eyes. Once the divorce is done, I'll walk away, peacefully. Meanwhile, the boss's wife is still divorcing her husband. He's fighting it, but she's standing her ground. We support each other through the tough days. But for the record, no, we're not romantically involved. There's nothing between us, just mutual understanding. She's a strong, independent woman who refuses to be treated like a fool. The kids are okay. They don't want the divorce, but they understand why it has to happen. They know this doesn't change how much we love them. As for my wife, she no longer works at the advertising company. She found a new job. Not that it changes anything. Not long after I served her the divorce papers, my wife quit her job. According to her, she has completely cut off contact with her former boss. She even turned to online forums, desperate for advice on how to fix our marriage, and has been following every suggestion she could find. I've read a lot about situations like this, and for the longest time, I couldn't understand why anyone would stay with a cheater. But watching how hard she's been working on herself, I get it now. I can see why some people are tempted to try again. She's not a monster. She's just a deeply flawed person who made terrible choices and now wants to be better. She has offered me everything, anything and everything, just for a second chance. I just don't know if I have the strength for that. And the closer I get to finalizing this divorce, the more peaceful I feel. We had a long talk recently. She begged me to reconsider. If not now, then after the divorce. She even suggested a prenuptial agreement, if that would make me feel more secure. I wasn't entirely against the idea, but at this point I don't see how it would benefit either of us. The truth is, a huge part of me wants this divorce because it's the only justice I can get. It's the only way to restore fairness without lowering myself to her level. My mother and I are on better terms now. I finally told her the full truth about my wife's affair, and let's just say she's furious. She's no longer pressuring me to forgive and move on. Even with my mom off my back, I still don't know how to process all of this. I didn't want to vent here again until the divorce was official, but today, I'm angry. As most of you know, my wife is terrified of me cheating in revenge. And the reason is simple. I still spend time with the boss's wife. She's younger than my wife. She's a model. She's incredibly attractive. She owns a successful business. And that makes my wife paranoid. She's convinced I'm going to give in to temptation and sleep with this woman out of spite. The irony? My wife actually has the nerve to lecture me about how two wrongs don't make a right. Unbelievable. And yeah, she's technically right. I have no intention of doing that. But every time she says it, her hypocrisy just infuriates me. Every time I make plans to see the boss's wife, like yesterday, my wife either gets incredibly sad or suddenly clingy. I've lost count of how many times she's tried to seduce me, just to make sure I won't cheat on her in return. I reject her, and it only makes things worse. I'm honestly stunned at how selfish cheaters are. They act like their own pain is the worst thing in the world, while the people they betrayed are the ones actually trying to pick up the pieces of their lives. One more thing. Our kids still spend time with the boss's wife's kids. I never visit her without bringing them along. But my wife still believes I'll use any excuse to do exactly what she did and sleep with another woman behind her back. It's ridiculous. As for her boss, he's still living in their country house, begging his wife to take him back. I won't lie, watching him suffer the consequences of his actions, that brings me a lot of satisfaction. He hasn't tried to come after me because he knows exactly how much leverage I have over him. He has to accept that I still talk to his wife. He can see his kids whenever he wants, but he makes sure I'm not around when he does. Honestly, I pity him. Meanwhile, my wife is still scrambling to make things right. She showers me with care and attention every single day, and I ignore it. We have a therapy session today, and I feel like I'm going to explode. I have so much pain and resentment bottled up inside me, and all I want to do is unload it on her. The anger I feel is becoming unbearable. I've read countless stories about infidelity, trying to make sense of my own situation. At our last therapy session, my wife asked for more time, just a little more, to prove she could win me back. She laid out all these reasons why it was worth at least trying to rebuild our marriage. She wasn't even asking for reconciliation yet, just a chance to see if we could start working toward it. I reminded her, more than once, that the only reason she was even trying was because she got caught. If she were still sneaking around with her boss, none of this effort would exist. Back then, she emotionally crushed me for months. And I am not the kind of person who lets himself be trampled on, even by the woman I love. She admitted everything, apologized again, made promise after promise, swearing to make up for what she did. She wants our marriage to be stronger than ever. She's convinced it's possible. I asked her if she was ready to deal with my anger, because I have a lot of it. She didn't hesitate. Absolutely, she said. She told me she wanted me to express everything I felt, no matter how ugly, if it meant I could start healing. Normally, whenever I asked why she had the affair, she would come up with a laundry list of excuses. This time, she didn't. She told me flat out, there were no excuses. She said she would prove, every single day for the rest of her life, that she truly regretted what she did and would never hurt me like that again. Then for the first time, she really opened up. She admitted she had always felt deeply insecure, especially around the boss's wife. The affair made her feel powerful. It skyrocketed her self-esteem. She loved feeling beautiful, wanted, desired. But it was all a fantasy. She admitted it wouldn't have lasted much longer anyway. She never thought about the consequences. Now, she's drowning in regret. She says she'll live with that guilt forever, and she might never fully forgive herself. She also admitted something that surprised me. She always assumed I would cheat on her in revenge because, in her eyes, the boss's wife was everything she wasn't. Beautiful, strong, a woman with principles. And, to her credit, the boss's wife never once threatened her or treated her cruelly. Then came the part that really threw me. The therapist turned to me and asked, "What would it take for you to consider your wife's proposal?" I had nothing. I told them the truth. The only thing that could fix this was a time machine. Because what I have now, it's a cheap, broken version of the marriage I thought I signed up for. The therapist pushed back, said that every marriage faces hardships, whether it's infidelity, loss, or something else. What really matters is how those hardships are handled. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told the therapist to stop talking about our marriage and focus on her, the one who actually caused all of this. The response? My refusal to listen to rational arguments might be a communication issue. I didn't even bother arguing. On the way home, my wife and I talked for a long time. She asked me a direct question. "Do you feel humiliated by my affair?" I didn't even have to think about it. Yes. And then she completely blindsided me. She asked if I would feel better if I slept with someone else. I told her again. I had no intention of cheating on her, not for revenge or any other reason. But she clarified. She wasn't talking about revenge. She was talking about a temporary separation, giving me space to go out, regain my confidence, explore the outside world while she waited for me. She said she would remain faithful. I looked at her like she had lost her damn mind. I told her that was the most insane idea I had ever heard. How the hell would that help the marriage? All it would do is turn both of us into cheaters. Her response? It wouldn't be cheating on your part. We'd be living separately. I told her she was taking a huge risk by even suggesting something like this. She just shrugged. So we were getting divorced anyway. And if her idea didn't help, at least I'd get the chance to see what life was like without her before making a final decision. It was desperate, completely out of character for her. Naturally, I shot the idea down. But ever since that conversation, she's been eerily calm, patient. It's like she's become a completely different person compared to the insecure, anxious woman I knew before. Of course, that doesn't mean I trust her. That part is still nearly impossible. But I have to admit, she's handled the divorce process far better than I expected. I've read so many horror stories about divorces turning into brutal, drawn-out battles. But for me, it hasn't been like that. Maybe it's because she knows she doesn't have a leg to stand on. Maybe it's because she genuinely regrets what she did. Either way, it doesn't change the fact that I'm still moving forward with this divorce. And I don't plan on looking back. My wife and I agreed to keep things civil and spend the holidays together as a family. This will be the last holiday season we celebrate under the same roof, though she still clings to hope that we might have a future together. I'm doing this for the kids. I love them more than anything. Soon, all of this will be behind us. We've divided everything fairly. If anything, she's been more than generous in the split. I don't know if this is part of some calculated strategy or if she'll turn aggressive later. But for now, she's handling it well. She openly admits that it's because I was a great husband and father, and she believes I deserve more than just a fair exit after everything she did. That said, she's not exactly losing much in the divorce, but thanks to her generosity, I'm walking away with slightly more. I decided to stop attending therapy with her. It was giving her false hope, and I didn't want to keep sending mixed signals. She confessed that, over time, she's developed a burning desire to be close to me again. She understands that her affair left me feeling humiliated and unwanted. And now, she keeps trying to initiate intimacy. The irony? Before all this, she rarely took the lead. Now, all of a sudden, she can't stop. At first, it bothered me. It felt forced, like she was desperately trying to erase what happened. But over time, I started to appreciate that she at least sees my pain and wants to fix it. I keep turning her down, but she's persistent. She insists it's not about getting back together. She just wants me to feel wanted. Meanwhile, I made the decision to cut off contact with the boss's wife. Everything was getting too personal, and I needed space. For those who assumed I was heading toward a revenge affair, you might not have been too far off. I didn't even realize it myself, until she admitted that she wanted to see where things could go between us. She told me she would wait until my divorce was finalized before we tried anything. That threw me off. I wasn't expecting it, and I didn't know what to say. So we agreed to take a break from communicating until everything settled. The truth? She's an attractive woman, no doubt. but I don't know if I can reciprocate her feelings. I don't even know how to process it. Some people have suggested that my connection with her was interfering with the possibility of her reconciling with her husband. Let me be clear. I had nothing to do with her decision to leave him. She made that choice all on her own, and when we spent time together, we never sat around trashing our spouses. Recently, her boss, my wife's former boss, reached out to me and asked to meet. He wanted to apologize. I'll admit, the man has always been arrogant, but this whole experience has completely humbled him. Did I accept his apology? No. Call me petty, but I don't care what he's going through. He made his bed, and now he gets to lie in it. Now, here's the part one really need to figure out. Is it normal to still want intimacy with my wife if we aren't reconciling? Because I won't lie. I miss it. She's trying everything. New lingerie, flirty messages, unexpected touches, handwritten letters. And sometimes it's hard to resist. She even went as far as burning, tossing out, and replacing anything in our home that had any connection to her boss. And she did all of this without me asking. Not that it really matters to me. I don't care where they did what they did. I just don't know what to make of this. Is this some kind of trap? Am I falling into a game I don't see? And before anyone says, just kick her out, I already tried. But honestly, keeping her in the house for now makes things easier for the kids. For a long time, I thought I had wasted all these years on a woman who turned out to be no one. But that's not entirely true. She gave me 2 amazing children. We had great memories. And as much as I hate what she did, I will always appreciate those things. But now, I finally get it. I can be better than her. And I will be better than her. I've received so much advice on how to handle the situation. And for the first time, I see it clearly. I deserve better. She humiliated me, made me feel worthless. The moment another man started giving her attention, she poured all her energy into him. And now, she's throwing all of that energy into us. Now, she's suddenly willing to do anything to keep me. Now, she wants to make me happy, when before, she couldn't care less. Now, she wants to be adventurous in intimacy with me. Our sex life was never mind-blowing, but I liked it. It was enough. Now, after reading the messages she exchanged with her boss, I realize how much I missed out on. And the worst part? I only know the tip of the iceberg. Now, she wants to prove how much she loves me. Funny considering she used to be lazy when it came to intimacy. Now she appreciates everything I do. She supports me, respects me, actually listens to me. Before, everything was about her. Now, she sees me the way I always wanted her to. Now, she treats me like a king. And the shame of it all? I had to become someone else for her to finally see my worth. Now, she's the perfect wife. But to me, it feels temporary. Now, she's completely open about everything. She's brutally honest. Even when it makes me angry. Even when it humiliates her. I've never seen someone look so permanently ashamed. She regrets the affair. I know that. I see how angry she is at herself every single day. I see the desperation in her eyes when I don't respond to her efforts. She looks miserable when she tries to hide it. Sometimes it makes me hate myself, but this is necessary. So why can't I just look at all of this in a positive light? Why can't I judge her by her actions now? Aren't they proof of real remorse? People go through long-term affairs and come out stronger, don't they? Why am I letting my emotions dictate my decisions instead of taking a rational approach? Someone else will get this new and improved version of her while I walk into another uncertain relationship. Why not fight for what's already here? These are the questions people ask me, and I have only one answer. I refuse to be walked all over. Maybe in the beginning I was willing to tolerate it, but I woke up quickly. I'm going to enjoy this Christmas with my family, and then I'm moving on without my wife. I've decided to stop listening to the noise in my head, to let go of her completely. I won't be seeing her again. I won't be giving us another chance. We're done. And just to be clear, my wife is not a villain. That's the absolute truth. I want her to be happy, just not with me. Today, I called my boss's wife. I asked if she'd like to have dinner after the holidays so I could thank her for standing by me when I was at my lowest. She said she'd be happy to. And before anyone jumps to conclusions, no, I did not divorce my wife because of her. My emotions were so tangled up over the past few years that the thought of another woman never even crossed my mind. And right now, this is just dinner. Nothing more. Unless, of course, we both want it to be. Because the closer this divorce gets, the more I realize I do have options. And one of them has been right in front of me this whole time. 3 years later. A warning, this isn't a fairy tale. There's no happily ever after. But here's the big question. What happened with my boss's wife? Honestly, we're great. If I had known a woman like her existed before, I would have searched for her for years. But seriously, I've never had such a strong relationship with a woman before. After everything I went through with my ex, I barely even knew what a healthy relationship looked like. I still have doubts about myself. Some scars don't heal easily, but she's helped me work through them. She's been incredible, and I am deeply in love with her. She constantly shows me how much I mean to her, and I feel the same about her. But for now, it's just a relationship. No marriage yet. I'm still not sure about that part. We keep the kids out of our relationship as much as possible. But yes, they know. And as for the kids, at first it was hard. Of course it was. But now, everything is fine. I think it's because we show up for them. We're there for them. We listen. We let them feel whatever they need to feel. We've even done therapy together. All of us. And my daughter and son, they adore her. She's amazing with kids. And me? For the first time in years, I feel free. Her kids treat me much better now than they did 2 years ago. Her younger daughter even started calling me stepdad at events and outings, which completely caught me off guard. At first, I worried she might feel pressure into saying it, so I asked her about it. But she just smiled and told me, I really like you. You make my mom happy, so I'm glad you're my stepdad. I wasn't expecting that. It hit me like a brick out of nowhere, but I kept it together. Seeing my kids happily playing with hers makes me feel whole. Although they've teamed up against my son, the only boy in the group and the youngest. They constantly tease him, and I'm not sure whether to laugh or step in. Maybe both. And what about my cheating ex-wife? We're on good terms now. She's been putting in a lot of effort to rebuild her relationship with our daughter. I was genuinely happy when my daughter told me she had found the strength to forgive her mother for what she did. They've been through a lot, and they've made significant progress. That said, I don't think my ex-wife has fully accepted that we are completely over. She still drops hints about a second chance. She's been going to the gym, staying in therapy, and overall, she looks much healthier. But honestly, I don't care. I've made peace with the past. If she hasn't done the same, that's her problem, not mine. She and my partner communicate more now, but my partner keeps things polite and cautious. That's the right approach, given everything that happened. And her former boss? He's a lost cause. I never realized just how pathetic he truly was. So much money and zero wisdom. He has a new girlfriend now, but his kids hate her, and they don't even try to hide it. It took me a while to fully see just how self-absorbed he really is. To be honest, I don't like his girlfriend either. She comes off as materialistic, selfish, and completely indifferent to the kids. In the end, we're doing better than ever. Don't get me wrong, I had my doubts. I questioned whether this was the right path, whether I was making a mistake. But in the end, everything turned out great. This isn't some fairy tale with a perfect ending. But right now, we are truly happy.